Sean Strickland put on one of the most pathetic performances in title history at UFC 312, where he was dominated 50-45 by Dricus Du Plessis, and all he did was jab and teep the entire fight at a very low volume, and his coach literally had to beg him in between rounds to fight. And pre-fight, he's saying, "To the death! We're gonna go to war for you guys, man. We're gonna bleed for you guys, man." Like he does every fight, and then go out and jab and teep. But this time he didn't even bother fighting. And Belal Muhammad posted a video on social media absolutely demolishing and humiliating Sean Strickland. We're gonna take a look at that video, but we have more to check out as well, because Dean Thomas on the UFC broadcast, which we're not gonna take a look at because I think the UFC will copyright it, but he also went on Ariel Helwani's show where he called out Sean Strickland for his fake character. And then also Luke Rockhold went on Ariel Helwani's show and called out Sean Strickland for exactly what he is. We're going to take a look at all that in this video. And I just love to see the fans and a lot of people in the MMA community finally starting to call out Sean Strickland for exactly what he is. And that's a fake, you know, warrior who's like going to the death, and he goes out there and tries to avoid the fight every single time. And he is a benefactor of Dana White privilege, and he says these extreme things, and he sucks off political leaders, and then he goes out there and tries to put on the most boring performance possible because he's an insecure, pathetic man. Let's jump right into it. We're going to start off with Dean Thomas. We're only going to look at a couple clips from Dean Thomas, then a couple clips from Luke Rockhold, and then we're going to get to the Belal Muhammad video where Belal breaks down Sean Strickland for 2 minutes, but Belal's been doing this for years. Belal has known for years, but it seems like the fans are finally starting to catch on. I've been saying this for years as well, but it seems like they're finally starting to catch on. Let's listen to what Dean Thomas has to say. Listen to this.
He's not who he thinks he is, or he's not who he tells us he is, right?
He's exactly who he knows who he is. He's just not telling us that.
Okay,
right?
What do you mean by that?
And that's what fighters do, is that as a fighter, your job is to almost kind of conceal who you really are, because in the moments when you fight, you go out there and try to do your thing. But you know who you really are. And I think he couldn't hide from it this time.
That's interesting to me, because you always hear people say, like, "Oh, in the gym, he's crazy."
Yeah, when he's beating up influencers, that's about it. That's when he's beating up influencers in the gym or guys who are less skilled than him. He's a warrior then. You know, he'll go after them and try to TKO them, even though he can't drop them, even though when he's, you know, sparring 120-pound influencers. You notice he turned down the sparring opportunity with Jake Paul because he was scared. And I don't like the Paul brothers at all. I don't even talk about them on my channel. But Strickland ducked him, literally ducked him, and ducked millions of dollars and made excuses. I don't know how that wasn't the end of his career. But dude acts like a warrior when he's beating up people who aren't skilled. But the second he gets in there with a guy like DDP, he basically curls up into a ball and cries. And this is even after begging for a title shot, a second undeserved title shot, which after not defending your belt at all, which made it even more disgraceful by the UFC.
He brings, so what's the difference?
Well, the difference is the spotlight. You know, the lights, man, when them lights hit you, it's the real you shows up. The real you will.
By the way, Dean's being charitable here. The reason is because he's fighting elite level opposition. Every single fight that he's in is boring as shit. The only reason he finished Abus is because Abus gassed out, beating the shit out of Sean in the first round, and had no gas tank in a 5-round main event, which was crazy.
Expose itself when the lights hit you. And that's what's happening to him, is that he's not that guy. And people think that I'm being mean. I'm not being mean. It's just not many people are. I'm not that guy. Not many people are that guy. Du Plessis is that guy, but he's not. You know, to go in there and be vulnerable and put your life on the line and go out there and fight really hard for 15 minutes, to just go ahead. And we all do hard stuff in life. But to do it in front of everybody when it's time, I mean, it takes a special person. And he might have been there a few times in his career or whatever, but that's not who he is now. We've seen it his last couple of fights. Like, he's just not willing to go in and be the dog that he told us he was.
All facts by Dean Thomas. And again, I think he's been a little bit charitable about the bright lights. It's just who Sean is. He's insecure. He was mentally broken by Dricus Du Plessis over a year ago at this point, made him cry. The entire lead up to the fight, Sean is focused on Khamzat Chimaev because he's scared to speak a bad word about Dricus because Dricus already embarrassed him in the past, already made him go cry on Theo Von's podcast. But he's a guy that says these ridiculous things for attention. He espouses certain beliefs for attention, and then he acts like he's a Billy Badass. Yeah, I'm going to go to war. I'm going to fight to the death for you guys. I'll break my nose for you guys. What a chump. DDP broke your nose. You didn't break your nose. Okay, you didn't even fight. You made DDP run you down as you turned your back and sprinted away the entire damn fight. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but you get my point. He's not that guy. He's not that guy. He's a fraud. He's a fake. He pretends to be this warrior who's going to go out and put on a great performance when he's arguably losing split decisions against Paulo Costa in one of the most garbage fights I've ever seen, and he only does it in the last 5 seconds just to get a highlight. Now let's move on to Luke Rockhold. Luke Rockhold, he doesn't like Sean Strickland. It was clear when I seen these clips, and I went and sought out the full videos. I'll link these full interviews down in the description if you care to go check them out. Calls out Sean Strickland for being exactly who he is. Listen to this.
I'm just, we all watch the fight, and we all heard the guy talk about to the death, Dutchman, to the death. This motherfucker talks such a big game, and then he bitches out and basically quits in a fight after he breaks his nose. Like, what are you worried about? You have a title fight. You have world titles on the line. That's all you want. That's all you dreamed of.
By the way, I'm actually going to correct Luke here. I'm sure Sean in the post-fight interview, which was absolutely humiliating, taking the mic from DC after the arena had booed you out of the arena because you were running away from the fight. But man, I bled for you guys, man. I broke my nose for you guys, man. Luke's acting like Sean quit because of a broken nose. Sean had already lost 3 rounds at that point, 3.5 rounds up until that point. He didn't try to fight. I mean, Eric Nixick was in the corner like, come on, Sean, please. Please do anything but jab and teep. Please, you're barely even teeping, Sean. Please fight for me, Sean, to the death, Sean. So Luke's kind of giving him an out with the broken nose. The broken nose happened like halfway through the 4th round, and he had already lost 3 rounds. He had already lost the decision. He needs a finish at this point. He's a guy that doesn't finish anyone. He's a split decision king, and then he's going to use pretty much the broken nose. I'm sure he's going to make a litany of excuses, broken nose, staph infection for why he lost, but he hasn't done that yet, so we'll call him out if he does eventually do that. But he's using the broken nose as if it's, oh, well, it happened in the 1st round. It did not happen in the 1st round.
And you're more worried about fixing your fucking nose than fucking winning and biting down on your mouthpiece and doing what you got to do? I mean, it shows your true character. That's the cage is all about.
Yeah, again, I like the comments here, but part of that doesn't really make sense. Like, he was sprinting away, grabbing onto his nose instead of trying to fight, but that happened in the 4th round after he didn't fight for the first 3 rounds either. Next clip we're going to take a look at, it's not that far, we're just jumping a little bit ahead here, where he calls out Sean for, basically doing what he does, not fighting and then trying to get a highlight at the last 5 seconds of the fight, which he didn't bother doing against Dricus Du Plessis. You notice that? Just like Holloway avoided the point to the ground against Ilia Topuria because he was too scared to box with him. Sean didn't do his little, let me try to win in the last, or let me try to do something crazy in the last 5 seconds, even though I'm down 5 rounds now or 4 rounds now to try to get a win. He just stood there looking like a little bitch, pathetic, insecure man. Anyway, let's continue.
When has he ever fucking put his ass on the line and fucking bit down and really went for it through a whole process of a fight, not just the last 10 seconds of a round? I mean, the guy is nonstop. I mean, he's not finishing any big fights. I'll tell you that. Look at him out there, just talking and doing shit that's not even him.
What do you mean by that last part?
I'm just tired of fake people. I don't know. I mean, you just see everything that he presents himself as, which he is not. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Facts. We're going to go to war, man. I'm going to bleed for you, man. To the death, man. Jab and teep. Sean Strickland's entire career was basically the same as Israel Adesanya's walkout against Jarrett Cannonier. Walk out with the urn and Mr. Undertaker and then go out and not really fight. But even worse, because this is a title fight that he did not earn. He never defended the belt. His first title shot was undeserved. He got a fluke win in that fight. I know some people are going to disagree with that. But either way, even if you think he won that fair and square, which he won fair and square, but there's more circumstances to that. then loses the title immediately. Because of Dana White privilege, he gets another title fight after split decision win against Paulo Costa. And then he says, I'm not fighting anyone else. I only want the title fight. I'm going to walk through the Dutchman. We're going to go to death. And then he goes out there and refuses to fight. I mean, he didn't even barely throw anything. He was barely throwing teeps. He just sat back and let DDP just work him over and impose his will on him with his pedo mustache, like father, like son. Anyway, Belal Muhammad. Belal Muhammad, I think, had the perfect takedown of Sean Strickland. Called him out for all the hypocrisy and the undeserved title shot and jabbing and teeping and not being, you know, a championship caliber fighter. And he's been calling this out for years. Sean does suck. Okay? He's still an okay fighter, but when you're talking about some of these elite guys who go out there and actually put on performances, Sean doesn't really go out and really do much. Even the Adesanya fight was horrible, but because he dropped him in the first round, he got that highlight and people acted like it was an amazing performance solely because it was very unexpected. And Bilal's been calling this out for years. Let's listen to what he has to say.
What did we learn yesterday? We learned that Bully's always right. I've been saying it forever. Sean sucks. He's trash. He talks a big game, but he's never walks.
By the way, I'll say this right now. I've been saying it for a while. If Belal can go up to middleweight and like healthily put on that extra weight, he would literally dominate Sean Strickland. I know that's a hot take. I promise you he would dominate Sean Strickland. Unless he went up to middleweight and was like this chubby, really slow welterweight who shouldn't be there, you know, which I don't see happening. If you put on the weight the right way, I think he would absolutely walk through Strickland, by the way. And would love to see that at some point.
Even to the fans that sit there and hype him up like he has the best boxer, the best boxing defense, this, and that. He's going to go to war. He's going to kill. I would bleed for my fans. I would die for my fans, blah, blah. But you go out there and he just jabs and teeps and he fights like a scared little girl. And he doesn't want to get hit, and he just, even when you're down 4 rounds, he doesn't go all out. He doesn't have it in him unless there's 5 seconds left in the fight. And he
all facts. Mr. Jab and Teep. Mr. Jab and Teep. And it's just so funny because Strickland, he went from one of the most underrated fighters on the roster to one of the most overrated fighters on the roster by beating Adesanya. And because he says racist remarks and anti-Muslim rhetoric, the fans were getting behind him. Not because they thought he was good, not because, you know, they found him exciting, but just because he espoused certain beliefs. And I love that Bilal's kind of calling that out as well.
He wants to yell and have that highlight reel and wants people to say that he's crazy, he's nuts. He's not. He's just a racist little clown that's hiding in a body of a fighter. He's a scared little boy hiding in a body of a fighter. He's a coward. And he shows it in his fights. And now he's going to come up with oh man, but I had staff. Let me tell you something, guys. I get paid a lot of money and I got staff.
That's a perfect impression of Sean. Yeah, man, let me tell you something, guys. Here's the thing, guys, man. I had staph infection. I'm waiting on the Sean Strickland interview with the excuses. If you guys have paid attention to my channel, he blamed a headbutt for the reason he lost to Dricus Du Plessis. It was a right hand. I've broken that down countless times. It's indisputable. It was a right hand. He cried and whined that he beat Dricus. He was robbed by the liberal judges. It was a headbutt that caused his vision to be blurry. The blood dripping in his eye from a headbutt. All lies. So I'm fully expecting Sean to make excuses about this loss. I think Bilal's calling it out preemptively. We'll see. Maybe Sean won't do it because maybe he's already taken enough criticism from the poor performance, but we'll see. But Bilal's pointing that out early. So if Sean does eventually do that, we'll have to give Belal the credit on that one.
So, but I was going to still fight for you guys because I have to put a show on for my fans. And then I broke my nose, so that messed up my whole fight, even though I lost the first 3 rounds just by jabbing one time.
He points out exactly what I said about Luke. Yeah, it had nothing to do with the broken nose. But that was what Sean was doing, already kind of making a little bit of an excuse in his post-fight. He didn't even deserve to get on the mic, by the way, after that shithole performance. He shit his pants like Colby did against Leon Edwards.
Every 5 minutes. And, yeah, man, it was off on the staff. That's why I wore sleeveless shirts at the press conference so people could see it and have the excuse built up already. And my fans will know that I still stepped in there for you. And finally we get to get rid of giving this guy undeserved title shots. That's all I got for you.
Yeah, hopefully Sean Strickland never gets another title shot again, because this was an undeserved title shot. But everything Belal said was facts. And Sean, all week he talked about Khamzat Chimaev, and Khamzat is a Chechen whore and he's a scam artist. If I ever hear Strickland calling Khamzat a scam artist ever again, I'm going to lose my mind, because Sean scammed fans, his own fans, out of $80 if you live in the United States and you bought the pay-per-view. Even so, anywhere in the world that you bought UFC 312, you were scammed by Sean Strickland, because DDP is one of the most exciting fighters on the UFC roster. So who do you think made that fight boring? What's DDP's 2 most boring fights in the entire history of his UFC career? It's both of them are Sean Strickland. Not that they were the worst fights ever, but it's no coincidence they're both Sean Strickland, because Sean Strickland talks this big game, but then he goes out there and refuses to fight because he's a scared little boy. And now he has to call Dricus Du Plessis Daddy Du Plessis after getting 50-45 by him, after sitting out and waiting for this title shot, holding up the division when we could have been watching Du Plessis versus Chimaev, all to watch that shithole performance at UFC 312. Love that Belal's calling it out. Love that Luke Rockhold's calling it out. Love that Dean Thomas is calling out. Love that fans are finally starting to turn on Sean Strickland. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.